America's healthcare advocate, Kerry Hall.
Hello, America. Welcome to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA. Our producer, Mr. Darren Wilhite, this is your show, America. Thank you for joining us and making us one of the most listened to talk shows throughout the United States. You can follow me on Facebook. You can do that on Twitter at America's Healthcare Advocate. That is the way to follow me. Also, the website, americashealthcareadvocate.com. If you've got questions or a comment, send me an email. I get a bunch of them, but I answer each and every one. By the way, podcast platforms, we have 14 of them now. So I'll go through these, and people ask me, why do I do this every show? Because I keep getting asked, what podcast platforms are you on? So Spotify, SoundCloud, RSS Podcast, Overcast, Rumble, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Pandora, Pocket Cast, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Amazon, Google, Odyssey, and YouTube. I think that's all of them out there. If there's anyone we're not on you want us to be on, let me know. And a little bit about that, we have 225,000 views on YouTube since January of this year, and we have 48,000 downloads on the podcast platform. That is because of all of you out there. So thank you very much for doing all that, and thank you to all of you listening on AM and FM radio around the country. All right, if you are a seasoned citizen, chronologically challenged, and you are looking for Medicare coverage, the good people at RPS Benefits by Design would be happy to help you anywhere in the country. 877-385-2224. You can ask for the lovely Joyce Thompson or Carol Lee Steele. They are Medicare experts. They'll be happy to help you. And if you're looking for employer-sponsored health care, Maria Allers is there to help you as well. 877-385-2224. Well, joining me in studio today is Gracia Carver and Ryan Roth, both from Blue Cross. Welcome back. Glad to have you both in here today.
Glad to be here.
You know, we're doing a kind of an interesting show today. We're doing a show on this. This is the J.D. Power Award that was given to Blue Cross and Blue Shield this year. And we're going to talk about that, and here's why. You know, I had a friend of mine say to me the other day, you know, it seems like customer service, the word customer service has gone out of customer service. Well, that's not the case at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City. And we're going to talk a little bit about that so you get a feel and a little understanding of why it's different there and what they do to make it different. So, Gracia, let's just start off with that. This is the second time you've won this award.
Yes.
And this one was in, how many categories was this for?
All 6 of the study factors for J.D. Power, we ranked number 1 in all 6 of them.
And that was for the Midwest region.
Correct.
That's Blue Cross over all the rest of them out there. United, Humana, Cigna, you know, go down the list, okay? Aetna, the whole 9 yards, they're ranked number 1. So talk a little bit about what goes into that. It's kind of interesting how they come up with this and how they... How many people they poll and all the rest. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, J.D. Power does this study every single year, running from January to March, I believe, is kind of their study cycle. And they randomly survey members across the Heartland region and determine which health insurance agency they are with. And with those results, we ranked number 1 in the Heartland region this year. And again, I think it's really important, Kerry, to really point out that we rank number 1 in all 6 factors. So it's about cost, it's about providers, it's about the network, it's about payments, it's about customer service. And I think that just really speaks to the entire organization of Blue KC employees contributing to this award.
Yeah, it is. And Ryan, you know, you're director of sales, and so you're talking to the brokers. You're also talking to employers who have the plan and other people. That's got to make things a little bit different for you in terms of what you're getting in terms of feedback back from folks when they do have to engage with the customer service rep at Blue Cross. Ryan?
Absolutely. We get consistent feedback that it's easy to access people at Blue Cross and Blue Shield all the way through the process, from pre-sale all the way through implementation and throughout the life of the case. Makes it easier for the broker community. It makes it easier for employers when they have an issue and need a resolution. So yes, consistently get that feedback.
Yeah, and so Ryan said something interesting there, Grace. That was the life of the case. One of the things I reference, for instance, when we talk about Medicare, is you see all these commercials on television, right? And you've got the celebrity up there, Jimmy Walker or William Devane or whoever it is, when they're not selling coins or whatever they're doing, okay, telling you to call this 1-800 number for Medicare. What I always tell people is, well, first of all, you're going to call it, okay, and you're going to get some high-pressure sales tactic. But after we get through all of that, what happens when you have to call it back because you have one of these 6 issues, whether it's a billing and payment issue, a coverage and benefits issue, a customer service issue, or a provider choice? What do you do when it's time to call it back? There's not going to be anybody there, Gracia. And that's what Ryan just said was for the life of the case or the life of the policy.
Right. I mean, I think for Blue KC, because our value is members first, we're doing everything we can to make sure that we understand, what the top issues are. We train our representatives to handle those. And we also do a lot of improvement work internally, Carrie, where we're driving out those issues and making things easier for our members as we go. So we design intentional experiences to really try to anticipate and be proactive in issues so that members don't even have to call.
Well, and that's the best part. But when I was doing this as a broker for 26 years, one of the things that I was always say to the client was, not if, but when you have a claims issue, or when Ryan's smiling, or when you have a provider issue, you are going to want to talk to somebody. And what you don't want to do is get 14 voice prompts and then sit on hold and listen to music that you don't even like for however long, and then get somebody on the line that is, well, no, I really can't help you. I'm going to pass you to this person or that. That is completely different than the way things happen at Blue Cross. And I speak from experience there, but talk about that for a minute, and I'll come back to my story.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because one of our key really values and measurements, if you will, is that we are solving that issue on first contact for that member. So we empower our reps to have the knowledge and to have the tools in front of them to resolve those issues the first time a member calls. And that, I will tell you, that is a big part of some of these other awards too. We were very fortunate to win over 10 awards by 4 different agencies, all on the same day, coincidentally. But a big part of that is our ability to resolve those issues on first contact.
Yeah, and as I said, I speak from experience. My wife had an issue here not so long ago where KU Medical Center had miscoded. I know it's a surprise that would happen. Had miscoded a lab bill, and she was kind of wind up having to pay for it. And she picked up the phone and she called the customer service. I told you this off air there a minute ago. She called. She was on the phone. I'm not exaggerating, for at least 45 minutes with that person. And they tracked back all the way through. They got the problem resolved, and KU, reclassified the bill, and it got paid. And it wasn't a big deal. I mean, it was like, I don't know, $60, $70, whatever it was. But my wife was like, we're not paying this because it should be paid. Well, she was right. But the great thing was she didn't get shuffled off. Well, you need to go to the billing department. Oh, you need to go over here. You need to go over there. That lady stayed. She was in the office. The door closed. I opened the door. She goes, I'm still on the phone. I'm like, you've been on the phone now for 30 minutes. And when it was all done, she goes, well, guess what? We got it done. Yeah. And that's what I mean, okay, is that they're there and they stick with the client to walk them through the process and get the thing resolved. So that first call thing is really a big deal.
It's a huge big deal. And, we balance that with employee engagement strategies as well. One of these awards looks at both of those factors, first contact resolution and our high employee engagement. Our feeling is, without satisfied and empowered employees, you really don't get a lot in service. So we look at both.
Yeah, and again, I think that's the key to the thing is you're empowering the employees to do what they need to do, and that translates back to the experience that the customer has.
Yes.
And that, in turn, is what makes Blue KC different in this town. By the way, all those folks are located right here on Main Street. They're not in a call center in a foreign country. Yes, that does happen. Or in New York or someplace else. So it's a little bit different the way it works here at Blue KC. If you want information, the website is bluekc.com, bluekc.com, or you can call 816-395-3858, 816-395-3858. 800-295-3858. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate, broadcasting here on the HI Radio Network, coast to coast across the USA. We've got more. Don't go anywhere.
The Golden Rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. I'm Steve Keeker, and this is one of the founding principles of my firm, Senior Care Consulting. Since 2002, our value statement has included honor our mother and father, respect our elders, care for those in need, and treat your family as our own. We've been honored to help hundreds of families make one of the most difficult decisions they could ever make, serving them in their greatest time of need. If you're looking for someone who can provide you experienced and objective guidance when searching for a senior care community, reach out today and discover the services of Senior Care Consulting at 913-945-2800, 913-945-2800. Know your options and choose with care at seniorcareconsulting.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the fruited plain here on the HIE Radio Network. You can find out more about us by going to the website americashealthcareadvocate.com, americashealthcareadvocate.com. If you've got a question or a comment, send me an email. I get a lot of them, but I'm happy to answer each and every one when I get them. If you've got a suggestion for the show, or if you need help with something, someone called the other day, had a 90-year-old mother and was having issues with trying to find a certain kind of treatment. We were able to help them do that. We are happy to do that. If you have questions, like I said, go to the website, americashealthcareadvocate.com. My producer, Darren Wilhite. Behind the camera is Dave Thiessen. In studio with me, Gracia Carver and Ryan Roth, both from Blue KC, Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City. So if you are looking for group health insurance, individual health insurance, Medicare insurance, you can go to their website, bluekc.com. All their policies are up there and the information is up there. Or you can ask your local broker about that, and they should be able to help you with it. Or you can call them directly, and they're happy to do that. You know, they are right down there on Main Street, and you can actually show up down there, make an appointment, show up, and go in and talk to one of their people if you've got a health insurance issue, or maybe you're looking for one of those Medicare policies, whatever the case may be. They're right here in Kansas City, and they're happy to help you. Once again, the phone number 816-395-3858. Ryan, let's shift this a little bit to the broker side of this equation, because I remember back in the day when we would go sit down with an employer or even individual health insurance, or on the Medicare side, it's pretty much the same thing. And we would show them the different opportunities they had with various carriers. One of the things I would caution people about is, and I said this in the first segment, was because what happens typically, especially on the employer side, is they drop right to the bottom line. They want to look at the price. Okay, you're smiling. Well, which I get. Okay, I mean, I understand that you're paying for this for your employees. You want to get the best value you can. But the flip side of that, as I would say to them, was there were certain carriers that I really cautioned them. I said, "You go ahead and do this, but I want you to understand that when your employees are standing at the pharmacy and can't get a prescription filled, or have got a doctor issue, or the case may be, don't call me screaming and yelling because you couldn't get through to anybody to help you because you called the 1-800 I don't give a damn number, okay, which is exactly what, in this particular carrier's case, is what I called it. Or you can look over here at the Blue KC plan, and you have that problem, they're going to help you. And if they can't help you for some reason, and you call us, I'll be able to connect with somebody at Blue Cross who will do their best to get... I never said we're going to get it 100% resolved if it was a claims issue or something, but you're going to get an answer. How important is that?
I think it's critically important. And to touch on what you mentioned a moment ago, price is important. It is important, but insurance is complex, and it's not something that people know inside and out because they're focused on the other things that they do day in and day out. So it's nice to know that somebody's there when they have an issue that's going to walk them through the process and get them a resolution. And I'd like to touch on for a moment what you had mentioned at your opening there, a local team. A local team's important. We're in the same time zone, so when you need an issue resolved, we're talking on the same time zone, so somebody's always available. If you need to see somebody in person, our team is local, so you can come in. Or in some scenarios, if it's a broker support or something, we have support teams that can go out and meet in a broker's or office or help them with a enrollment meeting or whatever it might be. So it really goes a long way to have a company that is so highly focused on delivering that level of service.
I made this little segue earlier in the first thing when I talked about, you can call that television number you want to call on Medicare, and they give you that number to call, and you're speaking to an agent. I mean, they may be in Illinois, they may be in Arkansas, they may be in New York, they may be in California, okay? And I always tell people when you do this, when you go to ask them about the hospital north of the river, and they ask you, what river? You probably know you've got somebody that doesn't know anything about Kansas City. You're laughing, okay? But I mean, that actually happens. I mean, I've had people say, they didn't know anything about. So how important is that? Back to this, those are the folks that you go to church with. Those are the folks in your PTA. Those are the folks your kids go to school with. The teacher. The local community. People here understand the community.
Absolutely. They know where that hospital is, and they know what north of the river means. They know the nuances of this particular market. So when you have a question, you're not spending the extra time and energy explaining to them what the question is you're asking. They know. So they're going to be able to get to the resolution quicker for you.
Yeah, and again, as you said, you're not explaining to them what the issue is. They're able to say to you, yeah, it's North Kansas City Hospital, or it's Liberty, or it's Cameron Regional, whatever the case may be. So they actually know where they are, what they do, and yeah, they're in network or no, they're, whatever. And that's critically important, isn't it?
Absolutely. I hear it regularly. I engage with the broker community a lot. I keep referencing brokers, and they repeatedly say, price is important, but we put a lot of business with you because of your service model. You're there for the members. You're there for the groups. You're there to support us as brokers. It just makes the process easy from beginning to end. Well,
from the broker viewpoint, the first one that gets the call if they're unhappy is the broker. Okay, and it gets to the why did you put us on this policy? Which is why that little caveat that I gave earlier, when I would say to him, you go ahead and pick that one, but if you pick it, okay, their call center's in India. Okay, and that's a true story. Okay, and I don't know if that call center is still in India, but for a long time it was with that particular carrier. So try figuring that out. Okay, when you're calling the customer service center or the customer service centers in Connecticut or someplace else, and they haven't got a clue, what they're dealing with here in Kansas City. And I think that's really important, Gracia, for people to know your team is right here.
Yeah, and I think the word local in this conversation reminds me too that our service representatives, they're taking care of family, right? We are local in town. It's their family that is also using our benefits, and I think that's one of our differentiators, right? And we talk to our representatives about that during training. We have long conversations about empathy, and they feel like in Kansas City they are taking care of their family.
Yeah, and I that's interesting. You use the word empathy. I don't I don't think a lot of folks see a lot of that in customer service these days. I mean, like I said in the opening, the word service has pretty much gone out of customer service in a lot of cases. You deal with some of these big national companies. I'm not just talking about health insurance. I'm pick any category that consumers have to interface with and try to get somebody to respond to you and care about, what your issue is. It's just not there like it used to be. It's not not anymore. Oh, don't you want to go do an online chat? No, I don't want to do an online chat. I want to chat with somebody. I don't want to go and do an online chat, right?
Right. I think that's, one of the things that's really important to us is we also look very carefully at even our staffing models to make sure that we have people there to pick up the phone immediately.
Yeah, and you do, and that's one of the great things. The website is bluekc.com, bluekc.com. All their products are up there, whether it's Medicare or it's ACA individual health insurance, or whether it's a group health insurance policy. They've got many models. They're up there on the website. If you just want to connect with them, 816-395-3858, 816-395-3858. You want to go down and talk to them on Main Street, they're happy to do that. give them a call. We'll be right back after the break. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate, broadcasting here on the HIA Radio Network, coast to coast across the USA. We've got more.
Oh, tell me, darling, am I right? Am I
Welcome back. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA here on the HIA Radio Network. You can find out more about us by going to the website, America's Healthcare Advocate. You can also go up on those 14 podcast platforms. We're on all of them that I named at the beginning of the show. In fact, if you look for one, you'll probably find us on it, including YouTube. If you want to tell somebody about the show or listen to it, you miss one, whatever the case may be, they're all posted now on the podcast platforms and on YouTube. And a lot of folks are using that as their way to listen to us. My producer in studio, Darren Wilhite, the man behind the camera, Dave Thiessen, in studio with me, Gracia Carver and Ryan Roth, both from Blue KC here in Kansas City. We are talking about primarily this, the J.D. Power Award, which they have won for the second time, and they won it in all the categories that J.D. Power surveyed, which is pretty amazing. And we're talking about the value of customer service. And as I said a couple of times so far on the broadcast, unfortunately, in today's world, it seems like the word service has gone out of customer service. That is not the case at Blue KC. The other thing is not the case at Blue KC is you've got an 85-year history. And I don't think there's anybody else in town can say that. Am I right or wrong about that one?
Yeah, and I think it brings a lot of pride to our employees, and it's most important for our members because of our experience and our ability to take care of our members. And just to tell you a fun story too, Carrie, we do a lot of work internally just to make sure members first is in the DNA of who we are. And one of the things that we did recently is we celebrated our first member. Honoring
you celebrated your first member?
Our very first member back 85 years ago as part of our, members first kind of commitment. But we have Betty Jackson, who was our very first member 85 years ago. We have her picture and her story in all of our conference rooms. And we talk about our members all the time, just how important they are. That's why we are here and making sure that we treat our members like family.
It's kind of cool. I doubt I'd see that in many other major health insurance carriers. If I walked into their facility, I doubt they could tell you who their first member was, actually. Yeah. So that's kind of different. I was up there last week meeting with your pharmacy team on some other issues, and I was there the day of the celebration of the 85th anniversary. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember sitting in the conference room downstairs, and they go, "It's going to get a little loud around here," because there were all the folks in the cafeteria facility there going back and forth with plates of food and just having a good time.
Yeah, we take advantage of those kinds of special events for our employees. But again, it really is about a purpose. Blue KC, and that's why I joined the organization. There is a purpose there in taking care of our members, and there's nothing more important than our health.
No, there isn't, and being able to access it and having the benefit is a huge part of that. Ryan, how important is it? Because I remember back in the day, as a broker, you'd have a carrier come in the market and they'd put a product in the market, and 2 years later the product was gone. We just had a carrier do that.
We did.
Okay, yeah, who just pulled out of the market on the group health insurance side. So how important is it back to this 85-year thing? Mm-hmm. I mean, Blue Cross has always been there for the last 85 years and continues to be there, as we move forward. So a little bit about that, because to me, on the broker standpoint, when I was out, actively as a broker with my agency, Benefits by Design, not part of RPS, Benefits by Design, that was a big deal to me. Because, you went on a policy and then the carrier changed their mind and they pulled out of the marketplace and you're left holding the bag, which is going on right now with some folks. How important is that 85 years of history when it relates back to the broker that's talking to the client and or the client, especially when you're talking about the employee-sponsored healthcare?
Yeah, and if I'm thinking of it from the member perspective, I want to know that I'm with somebody that is stable and invested in the community and going to be there for the long term. We've been here for 85 years. We expect to be for many years to come. So you can put that out of your mind of, will they be here in the future? Will they not? Is it a good, stable place to be? And then you can focus on some of the other issues at play.
Yeah, and like I said, we've had some carriers in and out of this market on more than one occasion, so it does happen, Gracia. Let's switch gears and talk a little about these 2023 awards, these other awards. It's ARCET Global, and did you say these all came about like in the same week?
Just coincidentally, it all happened on the same day. I don't know how that happened, but yes.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so these others are awards around customer experience practice and just how we think internally at Blue KC about taking care of our members and designing intentional experiences. And we were just very, very honored to win these, 4 of them, 4 golds, by very different organizations recognizing us for the work that we've been doing. And I think my 2 favorites are customers at the heart of everything. So we explain what we do at Blue KC to take care of our members and our customers. And that includes providers and brokers too, right? They're all part of that community of our members. And then customer insight and feedback. So just so your listeners know, we do a lot of work to gain customer insight, and we use that in the organization to improve things, to design better experiences, to create better experiences for our members. And the last thing I'll say on that, Carrie, is that several of these were international. So it's not just local. And I told my team I can just picture somebody who's in Turkey Googling, what is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City?
Because these are, it says World Series Annual Awards, right. ARCET Global. Yeah. So this is not JD Power. This is a different deal.
It is.
And you won gold in both these categories.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we were pretty honored.
Yeah, you ought to be. That's pretty substantial. And then we go to this Service Quality Management Group Annual Call Center Awards. Talk about that one, because that's another one that came across.
Yeah, that's a really important
a lot of categories, by the way.
It does. We won multiple awards with Service Quality Management, who is a contact center customer service research firm, and they actually provide research services for most of the Blues, and they report these numbers back to the association. So it's really, really important.
It's like a report card.
It is like a report card. And we were one of the call center finalists of the year. And I think the other important thing on perspective on this is it's not just the healthcare industry. SQM has over 500 clients across every industry you can imagine. And Blue KC was in their top 3 contact centers of the year.
That's pretty impressive. I remember when you got the first award, and Ron Rowe was up here doing the show with me, and he talked about not just did you just get the JD Power Award, but a number of individuals within your organization. One of them in that particular year was going to win the national award for for management of customer.
It is.
Help me out. I remember something.
Yeah, Service Quality Management has what we call a world-class award.
Right.
So it's world-class service, and individual reps and supervisors and folks across the area can win, and it's based on resolving issues. And then the call center of the year is also based on employee engagement. So it's those 2 factors that get us into world-class territory, which means we're providing service above and beyond what even other industries are doing.
It's pretty remarkable. There's a piece where that made me think of this. There were changes being made to the Medicare Advantage plan here 2 years ago and then in place for last year. And I remember sitting down with Jenny Housley and having this conversation, and she said, yeah, we went out and we talked to X number of people and we adjusted the plan to fit what they told us we needed to change. This is mostly on ancillary stuff. And some pretty interesting things came out of that, but I thought it was interesting that you actually took the time to go out and talk to the people that were the end users of the product.
Yeah, we do that consistently. We'll have roundtable discussions, various different surveys throughout the year to make sure that we're delivering on what's needed in the marketplace. So we'll do broker roundtables, we'll have member surveys. We do it in a variety of different ways.
And that feedback comes back to all of you, Gracia?
It does. And so part of our experience work that we do at Blue KC is exactly what Ryan just described. We also have a Blue KC Listens panel that is a set of over 400 individuals and members who can give us feedback at a moment's notice, either via survey or maybe a focus group qualitative focus group, but we talk to our members a lot. We'll even design experiences and run it by our members to say, here's what we're thinking about doing. And we may even watch them utilize, like our mobile app, Carrie,
Right.
was one where we actually watch them utilize
Yes, I have
the
it
app.
right here on my phone, by the way.
And
Yes.
we make improvements based on that feedback and those observations.
How much of that, and the two of you can answer this separately, goes into product development? How much of that feedback for what you do goes back to product development? And the same for you?
Yeah, I'll start first. So I know we have an amazing product and strategy team, and they're doing a lot of that experience work themselves, even with their own department, because I'm trying to, at Blue KC, kind of evolve the culture that everyone owns experience. It's not a department, right? And so our product and strategy work, they talk to members all the time about product and what they're designing. It's amazing.
They do, and they partner closely with us so that they know what the need is. They participate in a lot of, when I was describing broker roundtables and surveys and so forth, those product teams participate in those meetings. So they're listening, taking notes, recording when they can, so that when we're going through and making decisions on new products, that all plays a factor.
That's interesting. We come back to the break. We're going to wrap it up. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate here, broadcasting on the HIE Radio Network, coast to coast across the USA. If you want to talk to the folks at Blue KC, yes, you can call locally, 816-395-3858, 816-395-3858, the website bluekc.com. We'll be right back after the break. Hi, I'm Kerry Hall, America's Healthcare Advocate. Welcome back to the broadcast here on the HIE Radio Network. You can find out more about us by going to the website, americashealthcareadvocate.com. If you've got questions, my producer, the always perfect Darren Wilhite, behind the camera, Dave Thiessen, in studio with me, Gracia Carver from Blue KC and Ryan Roth. We're talking about all things Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Most importantly, we're talking about the awards they have won for customer service. And, for all you brokers out there, you know the answer to this. Who's the first person that's going to get called when something goes wrong? Well, if they call the carrier and they can't get through to somebody and they can't get help, it's going to be you. You might want to keep that in mind when you're looking at Blue Cross and Blue Shield versus some of these other policies that are out there. It's not always about price. It's about price, benefit, and service, all three of those things. The information, if you want to go on the website, is bluekc.com. The phone number, 816-395-3858. So, you started an experiment here in Kansas City. How many years ago did we start SpiroCare? I remember being in the very front end of that when it was all being talked about. Danette Wilson was the CEO. Mm-hmm. That was her baby. And it was very unusual. I mean, people are like, oh, my God, they're really going to do this. You're being mimicked now by a lot of people. I'm sure you probably noticed that. Talk about what that's grown into and what SpiroCare is now.
Yeah, we're in about 5 years. I just received a 5-year anniversary cup from one of the leaders at SpiroCare, and I could talk about SpiroCare all day. I just think it's phenomenal what it can do for our members. And I remember when I joined in 2018, there were about 2,500 members in SpiroCare. We had 2
locations. More than that now.
Now I don't even know the math on the percentage increase, but it's way up there, and we have 9 centers across the metro
That's
area.
Amazing. 9 centers. Talk about what SpiroCare is, Ryan.
So SpiroCare, probably the easiest answer to that is it's an advanced primary care that has expanded services in the facility right there. Labs, x-rays, many of those things are right there on location, depending on what location you go to. I think it's important to note that 9th location that was recently opened was in Independence, which has been very popular. There was a coverage hole there, and now we've really rounded out the community and have locations all throughout the metro.
Yeah, north of the river. They do have it north of the river, okay? So north of the river, I know they're downtown. They're in Overland Park. They're in Lee Summit. They're on Shawnee Mission Parkway, if I remember. That was the first one I think I ever went to. And now the brand new one over in Independence. So and Wyandotte County's got one. So they're all over the metro, folks. So it's not hard to do. It is a kind of a one-stop primary care, okay, that allows people to do everything from behavioral health to, as Ryan just said, prescription drugs, labs, whatever the case may be. All of that stuff is available at SpiroCare. So let's shift that a little bit to, what do you hear back from people? I told you a story off air. I'll tell it again here in a minute if we have time. But what do you hear back when you're talking about quality, customer service? And I know you measure this. I know you talk to these people. What do they think? What are you hearing back on the experience for the member when they go to SpiroCare?
Yeah, we do. And I'm just so delighted to see when we get feedback from our members that have gone to Spira. We do post-visit surveys, and those satisfaction scores, Carrie, are in the 90s. And it's just unheard of when you think about satisfaction across any industry.
When you think about primary care, let's just go right there. Okay, probably because you're not getting 7.5 minutes with your primary care provider, which is the national average, by the way.
Yeah, I have a story about that too, just personally, and I'll make it really short. But because the doctor took time with my husband, we avoided a pretty dire cancer situation. So it really is true that they take time. They're not measured on, a quick visit or trying to turn around those visits. Those are high quality, what you need at the time visits in SpiroCare.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but the average primary care doctor in a major hospital system or a primary care system has 1,500 to 2,000 patients in their queue. I mean, think about that. And then you've got 35, 40 people sitting in a waiting room trying to see the doctor, and that's they get you in there and they go through the little checklist, and the nice lady that's doing all of that and takes your blood pressure, and then comes the doctor. You got 7.5 minutes and they're back out the door because they got the next patient down the hall. They've got to get shaped, they got to turn. That is completely different than the average. You're taking 45 minutes to an hour. I've had the doctors on here multiple times. Yeah. It's a whole different game in the way it's done.
It is. It's a whole bit different ball game, and it's about listening to the member and really determining what their need is in that moment.
Brian, what are you hearing in the broker community? Because the brokers are signing the group clients. You've got a huge participation on the group side. Now it's available in Medicare. It's also available on ACA. What are you hearing back from the broker experience when they put somebody on?
Broker experience has been great. So speaking to what Gracia just mentioned there, that they really spend the time to get to know the member and find the best treatment plan. And we found, this is a good one that you'll find interesting, that it's driving lower cost, which helps keep the premium down as well, which is a big win for everyone also.
Yeah, and Gracia, the fact that you've got care guides, because this is another thing. So you go to the primary care doctor and he says, well, you need to go see the ortho, or you need to go see a neuro, or you need to go see whatever the case may be. We're going to give you a list of doctors, or you can look up in our system and do it yourself. Okay, try that out. Okay, first of all, when you call, you're going to sit on hold, and finally you're going to get through to somebody, and it's either going to be the doctor's nurse or the scheduler, and they'll get you in 30 to 45 days, maybe longer than that. Mm-hmm. The experience of SpiroCare, you don't do that. The care guide sits you down, so you get referred out to an ortho, or you get referred out to a neurology doctor, whatever the case may be. Talk about how that is different, the way it works with the care guide, because the care guide is a big piece of this.
Care guide is a huge differentiator. It is a specific role within SpiroCare, and it really helps navigate the member through not only their primary care, but the utilization of their benefits as well. And not only will they help guide you through that, but in my experience and just the feedback from members, those care guides will actually help you make the appointment. Yeah. They'll give you all the information that you need. It's astounding, what they are willing to do and what they do for our members to really direct that member to the right next step.
Yeah, because as you said, it's confusing and people do not understand it. And this is a way for them to understand it and make sense out of it. Thank you both for coming up here today. I think it was important to get this out. Again, I think, when you contrast what Blue KC does here in Kansas City with what some of the national carriers do, there's a big difference. The website, again, is bluekc.com. The phone number is 816-395-3858. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with this thought from Dr. Martin Luther King. Americans must learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will surely perish together as fools. Truer words never spoken in today's atmosphere. Thank you for listening to America's Healthcare Advocate, broadcasting here on the HI Radio Network. Goodbye, America.